Stephen. I got in heavy. And today, my total allocation to Bitcoin for my liquid net worth is about 86%. And if I had $200 million here, 85% of that would go to Bitcoin. I don't even think about the value. I added 8% to my Bitcoin stack just the other day. And I don't even care about the money anymore. I care about, hey, how large is that stack? Can I get that stack to a level where I think it is legacy, life altering money? I'm looking for freedom and power, ability to counteract evil. And I can't do that on $100 million. I need a lot of money to be able to make change. Stephen and I will offer you, and I'll make the offering, one Bitcoin. He and I will give you the 25-hour schedule of what you have to study. If you do the 25 hours and you decide not to invest in Bitcoin, I will give you one Bitcoin to do whatever you want with it. Not one human being spend 25 hours will walk away from this. Get in, take a bite of the apple, and then study the apple. I think people have an option here to opt out, to get a choice to this new world. And I would actually say that if you've listened to this, you have no right to complain in 5 years if you're left behind. You got to wake up right now. Right now, you got to wake up.
Hello and welcome to the Achieve Alpha podcast. My name is Stephen and I'm the host of the show. I'm really happy to welcome Gary Cardone, who's the CEO of Cardone Digital Ventures. Gary has worked in a number of different sectors and he has recently just gone all in on Bitcoin, having invested in Bitcoin itself, as well as investing in a number of different Bitcoin and crypto related companies. So, welcome to the podcast, Gary. Really great to have you on.
Thank you very much. Good to be here. And apologies for being late. I was late today.
Absolutely, no worries. So, how's sunny Florida? How's St. Petersburg?
It's awesome. It's awesome here. It's getting a tad warm. So we're in the 80s, but the weather's been really beautiful this year.
I've heard more and more companies are moving out there to St. Petersburg and opening up.
Yeah, last week I was at a ball game with Kathy Woods and her husband and that whole team, and there's a lot of people moving here. I think people have figured out that Miami is overdone. We have absolutely. I was there last week, and I picked up a friend of mine. She lives in 3 buildings. They have 600 parking garages in each building. All these buildings that are going up in Miami, I don't know if you've been there recently, but think about 300 parking spaces to 500 parking spaces in each one of these buildings. None of those cars are on the road yet. And Miami is already completely saturated with traffic. So I think they move all. Me and Kathy were talking about this. A lot of those people who want a quality of life and also want the ability to fly to Europe in six hours or fly to LA in 4 hours from St. Pete, Tampa. It's very achievable. We have infrastructure here. I think a lot of that money is going to repopulate up north from Miami to Tampa. So, because we have so much infrastructure here. Anyway, it's a great place to be. I'm happy to be here, and there's a lot of technology people coming in here, so it helps with being able to build businesses.
That makes sense. The more companies that move there, the more likely that more companies are going to move there, and then you get like that flywheel effect. Yeah. All right, Gary. Well, I just wanted to, just to get started, I wanted to go back into a little bit of your background and some of your history and your career. And I thought that you had an absolutely fascinating background, actually, because it's really amazing how you and Grant both came from exactly the same background, were brought up in the same way, and then you both became incredibly successful, but in your own rights, in different industries and in different sectors. Can you just talk to me a little bit about your background and and how you were raised.
Sure. Yeah, it is interesting. Two people coming from the same house, taking very, very, very different approaches to life. Anyone that knows me and my brother and I, like we are really, really, really different. We look a lot alike, but boy, are we different. Are just the way we approach risk, the way we think about business. Like he loves cash flowing businesses, which I like cash flowing businesses also, but I don't disrespect the value that or the fact that a tremendous amount of money has been made in private equity, building businesses and selling them. That's what I've done my whole life. Um, Grant's got great businesses. They generate a tremendous amount of cash flow. For me, the real estate business is not really that exciting. And if I'm going to do something for a living 12 hours a day, for me, I mean, maybe it's because my first job was in commodities. I want it to be exciting. I want it to be intelligently stimulating and challenging. And real estate just doesn't do that. And I appreciate there's been many, many families turned into millionaires from real estate, but there's been a whole lot of families turned into billionaires from private equity building companies. And so I think you, depending on where you are and what your skills are and what your passion is. I mean, for Grant, he's always loved real estate. It's been his deal. He's built a really great business and he's leveraged off that business to do some other things. So there's room in this world for everyone. I think that's the message, right? If you focus, I went corporate, he went by himself. I don't think Grant's ever really worked for anyone. I think he was fired like 8 times. He is a guy always going to work for himself. I like working with people. I've had bosses. I would have another boss tomorrow morning. It wouldn't bother me in the least. To me, some of these games are so big, you need a big team. And so I don't always need to be the captain. I end up being the captain quite a bit. Don't know really why that is, but I'm cool with being a soldier. I think, one of the things I've learned is that people who have been soldiers for long periods of time, they make the best generals if they have general qualities, right? Qualities of a general. And I think the reason is because you have more empathy with what a foot soldier does or how lonely it is to build these businesses. Everyone wants to be an entrepreneur until they realize how lonely it is, how desperately lonely it is. And I don't say that as oh gosh, my life is tough. I say it as a fact of being an entrepreneur. It is a lonely, lonely journey. And no one in school talks about that part of the journey. You just got to be built for it. So for some reason, man, he and I were built for wanting to do something bigger than where we came from. And like right now, I'm going through something right now that probably the biggest decision of my whole life of how I'm going to spend the next 10 years. And it's really around doing this kind of stuff right here. Like, I don't, it doesn't come natural to me to do this. I'm a little afraid of it, but I think that I think education, we have through this decentralized media, we have an ability, a tool, a segue to fix the education system. And that really is interesting to me because I see so many people in their later years in life, in their middle years, and their early years, completely wounded over what the fuck to do with their lives and their careers. And I'm sorry to use the violent language, but the truth is, we should be using violent language for people who spend 40 years in jobs they hate. Like, why would you want to do that, man? Our school system should be set up to have people living a prosperous, wealthy life, which means you're doing what you love to do. Like no wonder so many people are unhappy. They're doing stuff they don't want to do. They're not good at it. They go to work to escape the house. I don't go to work to escape my house. I go to work to have fun, man. To do something different, right? To make some contributions. I think a lot of people just want to leave the home and they need to go somewhere. So anyway. That's my little rant on trying to help the world. Like what's important to me is I need to be involved in something that's significant and it's making a change on the planet. And I think Grant has that same agenda. I don't know where all that came from. Tough Sicilian mother, father. I don't know, man. It perplexes me because we could have easily been in jail. We could have easily died of drug overdoses and doing stupid shit.
Yeah. But maybe it was those hard experiences that really propelled you to both being successful because you went through a lot of different things.
I think the deaths really kind of, my dad died when I was 9, and then my older brother died when we were 20. Those were really shocking. I mean, they were like in your face shocking, and there was nowhere to go. When you're that age, there's nobody to talk to about it. I mean, what the adults say is, "Hey, time will heal all." That's bullshit. Time doesn't heal that kind of pain, okay? Does not heal that kind of pain. So I think, what I notice, Stephen, is that a lot of people that I admire as far as producers of change and production, creativity, they all had very difficult lives. Almost every one of them. Almost every. In fact, I don't know anybody that did not have a difficult life. That I just see a lot of these people have some bruises and damages in their history that seem to propel them. Elon's childhood was not fun. And I'm not saying that we had a horrible childhood. We didn't. I had great parents, but we did have a lot of trauma and very rebellious. I was rebellious. Like I just didn't buy into the news, the story, the hey, this is what you're going to do. So anyway, I can't really explain it. He chases money. I have never chased money. Like we just did an interview. He's like, Gary, I should have chased more money. I'm like, I've never chased money in business. So it just goes to show you, it doesn't take one type of personality.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard a really good quote recently which sums this up, where it said that men have two lives and then they start their second life when they realize they only have one. So I think that's an extremely important quote because that just shows that when we know that we only live one life and we want to have as much freedom as we possibly can and we want to be able to do things that we want to do with the people that we love, right? And I think that's a pretty important message. And it also goes on the Bitcoin theme as well, which we'll come on to as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I may not agree on the one life thing, but when you realize, hey, your clock is running and there's only so much you're going to do in this farm, that is becomes very, very important to me. For sure, I think about that a lot. Hey, what am I doing now in the next 10 or 15 years? Because really, that's all I got. Maybe on a good day, I got 10 to 20 years left. So I start to think about things quite differently than I did when I was 20.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about providing an impact, right? Well, great, Gary. I wanted to now touch upon Bitcoin. And you worked in a number of different industries. I think you mentioned that you worked in natural gas trading before and other industries. What made you go all in on Bitcoin? What was the kind of key qualities that you saw about Bitcoin that made you think, right, this is what I want to dedicate my time to, and this is why it's such an important opportunity in the future?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think, it's important for people. Like, I didn't just wake up one day and go, oh, Bitcoin and get it, right? Just a little background. So, my first career was involved in helping restructure the entire natural gas and electric markets in the United States and Europe. And those markets today, about 50, maybe 100, no more than 100 human beings on this planet, and more likely 50, restructured the entire energy industry. It took about 20 years, but we did it. And we're talking about restructuring an industry that determines whether a country is a first, second, or third world nation. You think about, like, he who has the most natural gas can create the most electricity, and that will define where you are on the food chain as far as global sovereign power. So, our community has cheap electricity, cheap natural gas, even if it's not cheap, as it is not in Europe, as long as they have vast quantities of it, even then, right, it puts them in a really cool position. But having to cook on wood, which, by the way, 40% of the world still does, they cook on wood. You're in Korea, so like, it's a little different in Korea than it is here. 40% of the world cooks on wood. That means half their day is spent making food and water. Okay, cleaning food and water, half their day. There is no career there for them, right? All they're doing is trying to survive. Here, we have plenty of power and electricity. Funny, we were able to completely commoditize those markets, and they work better than they did 20 years ago. The price of natural gas 20 years ago was $7.63. It's $1.87 today on 30-day contracts. No long-term contracts, no insurance policies, no government bonds, no infrastructure being built by big bonds and public entities. The public, all private capital, all on short-term markets. And every expert from McKinsey to CapGem to Amoco, Shell, Exxon said this would fail, that people would die in hospitals, that when Enron imploded, the power was going to stop. Not one kilowatt stopped, not one decatherm stopped. All that changed was the name of the owner of those assets. And it went from one bank to another bank to another bank. And that's all that ever changed. That moved me into the credit card payment industry because I thought that industry was pretty done. We finished our job. So in 2002, I was getting bored, and I was in London, and I was like, I'm going to take a break. I think I can take a break from my career, take off 3, 4, 5 years, study something I want to study. And if I need or want to create another career, I was 41. I'm smart enough to create another career. I'm not going to get trapped into a job for the rest of my life. I was making about $7 million a year. So this was kind of a difficult decision because it wasn't on the, hey, this is what you should do once you make it, right? Once you make it, they tell you, hey, keep your damn job, just work there forever. And I'm like, I don't want to work here forever. I don't want to make $7 million doing this every day. Like, I'd like to do some other things, right? I don't want to get trapped by money or a position. I mean, I was the youngest CEO in Europe. And I was like, I did not grow up to spend my life just slaving. I had 600 people working for me. I'm like, what am I here for? Am I here for ego? Or am I here because I'm having a good time? And I was no longer having a good time. So I took off, came back to the US. 5 years later, run into some woman who drags me into the credit card business, 50-year-old business, man. And I see a business that has so many problems, transactions that don't settle. Visa and MasterCard are like, well, we do 50,000 transactions a second. Like, yeah, bro, but none of them settle. You do zero settlement per minute, per hour, per day. You do zero settlement, Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. No settlement is done. Bitcoin, this is what I learned. I'm like, whoa, Bitcoin settles within minutes, if not seconds. Full settlement. I could send you $10 million right now, Stephen, and you open it up on your wallet. You immediately transfer it to some kind of stable coin, okay, which I think that's the wrong name, but you can immediately liquidate it into a linked digital currency to the US dollar within seconds, without any intermediaries, without any permission requests, without any wires, $35 fees, or assistant to a president or a vice president calling you while you're driving down the road doing 100 miles an hour to figure out what your sort code and your ABA is on the wire, right? For AML and KYC and all that security shit. And that deal will settle in 3, 4, 5, 6 days. but Bitcoin, I can settle instantly. So I knew about restructuring and reformation of big industries. Also knew enough from the payment industry to understand that the World Wide Web was created by a bunch of really smart people who completely and utterly missed the opportunity. Here we are building the World Wide Web to create communication between 8 billion people, and not one human being considered that there was a commercial opportunity to exchange money between these people. Not one person, man. We go 15 years. Every industry on the planet got impacted by the World Wide Web, and then COVID dropped in on us as a little gift. That really restructured or redefined how people would do business for a long time in the future. In my opinion, a total restructuring that will never go backwards, right? We will never go back to walking in and out of stores on a regular basis. This will be a logistics issue, and everything on planet Earth has been commoditized. When you put an entire marketplace into a glass aquarium, let's call the World Wide Web a glass aquarium where buyers and sellers can see each other, it leads to transparency, right? That's what that is. It's transparency for all players, not more or less transparency for the big players or the smaller players, transparency for all. Once you introduce transparency, and I learned this from the energy business, dude, commoditization follows. And what happens in commoditization? All things are equal. Commoditization means 1 barrel of crude equals 1 barrel of crude. One natural gas unit equals one natural gas unit. $1 equals $1, and one T-shirt equals one T-shirt if it gets to be big, pervasive enough. Like these T-shirts, like come on, like you're charging me a premium because you stuck a label in the back from Korea, man. That's not going to fly, right? It like transparency leads to commoditization. Commoditization leads to reduced margins always. 1000% of the times, margins collapse in transparent commodities, and then volumes just explode, right? Which is what we have in the payment system. We have massive amounts of volume, very little settlement, a lot of friction. 650 million chargeback disputes a year. 650 million chargeback disputes a year. Okay. I built $100 million business just around this issue, and there were 5 people that built one behind me. So this problem is so big. Visa and MasterCard have spent $3 billion buying companies to solve this problem, and it only gets worse. And I say the reason is one, they love the problem. Two, it's a plumbing problem. It's not a fraud problem. Okay. The entire payment rails are failing 21st century. It wasn't built to do what we're doing. Okay. This is why Bitcoin and digital assets are so important. For your audience, I use really simple analogies. Okay. This is how I got into Bitcoin. So heavy, so fast. Do you think that you and I are ever going to use an 8-track tape player again? Remember that old 8-track tape? You're barely remembering, like you're young enough.
Just about. I know. I do remember it. I do remember it, but definitely not going to go back to it.
I, I, I remember it wiggling, right? You're listening to Grand Funk, and it starts straining, and uh, the box was this big. I have 50,000 uh, freaking songs on this thing today. So the question is, it's very simple, and this is really for your older audience. Do you really think we're going back? Do you really think we're not going to move continuously into this digital realm where everything gets more and more compressed? Why is this available? Because we have compression technology. You can just jam all these packets of information, video. Look at what we're doing here, man. This is CNN quality. Okay, like you and I had some technical problems, but like we did not spend $6 million on cameras like CNN did. I might have spent 6,000, right? So we're seeing technology change. I mean, just that you can see me right now. Anybody, you're in Korea. This was not available 10 years ago, dude. Not in this kind of quality, right? So we've had CNN, Fox, CNBC, the BBC. They've all shit the bed, right? They've all lied to us. They've got talking heads there with no content. Now people like me are showing up going, hey, I think I have 30, 40, 50 years of content here. And I don't think Don Lemon has any content. I don't think the Anderson Cooper guy has any other content other than being from a rich family, getting a job, and he's told what to read and when to read it. Okay, that is not news. That is propaganda. It is programming. It is not news. It is not factual data. And it's definitely not education. So here we are. I go into Bitcoin, realize that media is being massively disrupted. Nobody's talking about it. I'm so glad about it. I'll spend my entire life like, I would love to disrupt CNN, and then that leads to education. And then the more I do this, the more I realize, my God, man, we have an entire population of 4 generations of people who are ignorant. Okay. I'm saying they have been programmed to understand things incorrectly. They have been mistaught and misinformed. And I see this as a tremendous opportunity as long as we're not censored. And as long as we get to control how assets move in and out of our lives, I'm happy to pay my taxes. Okay. But you should not be able to control where, how I spend my money, with who. And I most certainly shouldn't have to pay unnecessary fees in the 21st century just because a card scheme is there, or because Wells Fargo is there, or because Barclays there. There's $7 trillion in fees made in the United States, dude, on NSF, just chargeback fees, these little fines, and it's none of them are from banks. They're from third party vendors. The payment rails are so full of people. Like it's like a pig trough, okay, a big old hog trough. And you have one bank and you have one merchant, or one consumer and one merchant. In between Sony and Gary Cardone are dozens of companies, fraud companies, payment companies, refund companies, advertising companies, people taking a little click. The referral agent that got the introduction to the merchant, they pay 10%. Dude, it's littered with fees. Okay, littered with fees. And that explains why MasterCard and Visa, probably the oldest duopoly currently in the world, as public companies, Visa makes a 51% gross operating margin and MasterCard makes a 46% gross operating margin. Find me any company in the world that's 10 years old that makes that kind of margin. ExxonMobil, 11. Now, how is it if ExxonMobil made it the same kind of margin Visa made, there would be rioting in the streets, my friend. Okay. The fossil fuel company. Well, look, I think fossil fuel is far more important than a piece of plastic that doesn't even settle a transaction. Okay. So, how did I get into Bitcoin and why I like it so much? One, I think we probably need more anarchy today than we've ever needed it before. We probably need another solution. And why anyone would be so scared of a solution from an analog era, analog 8-track tape. Remember, you guys remember the little old machines we used to use on the credit cards, right? And take an imprint. So remember, that's what we built this on. We built it on that thing, right? And now we are the World Wide Web, 21st century, 2024. 50% of every product on this planet gets purchased online. But the payment systems was not built for online, dude. Literally, you're trying to shove a technology that's 50 years old into today's world. It's like trying to put a horse and buggy on the highway today in LA. That's exactly what it's like, actually. How many horse and buggies do we see on the highways in LA? Very few. Why? Because they would stop all the progress. And that's what we have with the current system. So for me, Bitcoin was an option on gold. It was an option on silver. I had both of those. I believe the world is struggling in debt, drowning in debt and lies, drowning in debt and lies. Media, lies, and the debt is a lie. Okay. The entire housing market is a complete scam. Imagine if mortgages went away tomorrow morning. You don't think Bitcoin's worth $60,000? Let me put it this way. You're living in a house that you pay $1 million for. If that mortgage for 70 to 80% of that $1 million house was no longer available tomorrow, if it was illegal to do a mortgage, what would the price of that house be?
A lot less because people wouldn't have the money to have it.
It would be, you know what, dude? It would be three quarters less because the truth is the 20 or 30% is all the person can afford to put in the home, right? Bitcoin has no mortgage and it's at 70 grand. Bitcoin is a piece of real estate. It is an asset. It's an asset I can move a lot easier than this house. Okay. Plane can't fly into this house and destroy it, right? Yes, it can. A kid can walk in here and burn the house down. I have to insure it. I have to take care of the grass. I have to have a lawnmower man. I have to clean the trees. It takes my time. I have a congresswoman coming over here right now. If my plumbing bursts, what am I going to do? Am I going to go talk to the congresswoman or I'm going to go fix the plumbing? I mean, how many employees do you have? They come to you and go, hey, sorry, Steve, I can't come in today. I've got to fix my roof. And your answer should be, bro, I didn't ask you to buy a house. It's not my problem. Why is that my problem? Is the employer that you decided to buy a house? Like, go rent a damn house. 72% of the people in the United States own homes, and they shouldn't. Because one, they don't own them, and they can't afford them. We just defined that, right? If you didn't have the mortgage, you couldn't afford it. A home is not an investment. You guys have been lied to. Okay. A home is an umbrella, man. It's a fucking umbrella. It's a place to put your head and be protected from the elements. It is not an investment. If it was an investment, your wife, every time it goes up 100%, should be willing to sell it. But they don't sell it. No, no, no. We grew up here. We're 8 years old. We can't sell this house. We have memories. Well, you're going to sell the house, man, sooner or later. This is a transient world we live in. I need speed. I don't need things that take 6 months to liquidate. I don't need a condo. You guys that live in condos, watch your HOA fees. Uncontrollable HOA fees, okay? They will literally go up forever because they will have to. What's it going to cost to fix the Colosseum in Italy? Every year it gets more expensive to fix it and clean it and keep it up. That is the same thing. You go to Italy and look around and go, whoa, what's it going to cost to fix this shit in 20 years? It will get to a point where you can't fix it. It's too expensive to fix, right? So Bitcoin to me offered me an opportunity outside the system, take a little bit of a wedge. I've been studying this for 6 years, so this is not like I just pounded in here yesterday. But when I did get into it, Stephen, I got in heavy. And today my total allocation to Bitcoin per my liquid net worth is about 86%. And if I drop 200 million, I have a business that really needs to get liquidated, but it's a $200 million. If I had $200 million here, 85% of that would go to Bitcoin tomorrow morning. And I don't, like, I've been doing this my whole life. I know what I'm doing. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I could go broke doing this. I've never gone broke before on this thesis. I've done this. Like I'm comfortable with this, and I'm not suggesting people make an 86% allocation, but you should ask, hey, why is this reasonably? Maybe I'm not even smart. Maybe I've just gotten lucky. But why would a guy that's been lucky his whole life talk about 86% allocation? Why would he even spend time doing this? Like, why am I even being vocal? The reason I'm being vocal is because the US Fed is not going to tell you this. President Biden's not going to tell you. There's no teacher that's going to tell you this. Your policeman and your congressman are not going to tell you because they have no clue. They're under the same bullshit lies that you and I are under. Okay. So, like, I want to come out. I know you guys are struggling, man. Okay. I know you're struggling because when I go buy a new car, I look at it and go, unbelievable, man. How can anyone afford anything anymore? And I can afford anything I fucking want, man. But you start looking at a Range Rover, $180,000. You're like, when did this happen, man? It's a nice car, 180 grand. I got to make 200 grand to pay for it.
Especially when you consider, as you said, a lot of people own houses, they have mortgages, they have car payments, they have all sorts of costs. It's extremely difficult for people in this day and age just to be able to afford to live on a general salary.
You must be close to a reckoning point. When I went out with a young woman the other night, 30 years old, and she said, "Hey, I just bought a car." I said, "Oh, did you buy it?" No, she didn't buy it. She took a lease, right? She couldn't afford it. And I said, "Hey, what's your note on that?" 650. What's the insurance? 150. What do you make a month? She's $800 on a car before she puts fuel in it, man. Okay. She makes $3,800 a month. 800 of the 3,000 she makes before taxes is going to an automobile. She can't afford that car, dude. She should have bought a jalopy for 2,000 bucks. See, we've lost our mind now. Everybody's got to have a new car. It's like you can't afford a new car, dude. You can't afford a house. Like when I bought this house, this is a good example, actually. I'm not saying this to brag, but when I bought this house, I could have bought, it would have cost me 1,000 Bitcoin. I could have bought 1,000 Bitcoin at current price. When I bought this house, I paid 8.6 million. I agreed to buy the house before I knew I could borrow. So I was fully equipped to pay for this house in cash. I then went to the bank and said, "Hey, what can you guys do for me?" They gave me 120% loan to value. But remember, I was in a position to pay 100% of the money in cash, right? I backed into the loan. I'm different. Like you guys are going to the bank and going, "Hey, I need the loan to buy the house." Well, I didn't need it. The truth is, however, that purchase, had I spent more time looking at Bitcoin, that has cost me $60 million, man. Okay, if I'd have taken those same funds, just to show you how dollars have eroded in value, okay? If I'd have taken that 8.6 million and put it into Bitcoin, it would be worth 60 some odd million dollars today. This house might be worth 12. Okay, what's the better trade? Okay. Oh, also, I could liquidate that 1,000 Bitcoin within 10 minutes. Okay. How long will it take me to sell a $14 million house in St. Pete, man?
Take a while.
Long time, dude. Unless I'm the right guy, it's going to be a while. And I still have to pay insurance, $156,000 a year. I still have tax bill, $170,000 a year. I don't pay the taxes. I do not own this house. You right? They're going to come take it away from me. So we're comparing an asset against a liability. And that's the confusion for Bitcoin. The population is literally not understanding their other liabilities and assets. That's why they can't understand Bitcoin. You see, this is the big problem for Bitcoin. This is why the education for me is so important. It's like, whoa, they don't understand anything about the shit they got. I think that's the problem here. Because if you really look at Bitcoin, you're like, wow, this is a no-brainer. It doesn't everything work like this, right? So sorry to go on so long.
That's fine. The more you know about the history of money and how things work and how fiat currency works, and the more hours you spend researching Bitcoin, the more you really understand why it's needed and what the purpose of Bitcoin was in the first place. I wanted to ask you as well, Gary, do you think we were talking about that movement from the analog stage to the digital stage, and how obviously we want things to be as frictionless as possible and as convenient as possible? Do you think Bitcoin came out at exactly the right time? So it's a really great design, a really perfect design, a hard asset. But do you think that the timing of when Bitcoin actually came out actually contributed to its success?
Well, is Bitcoin a success yet?
It's on the road. We won't call it a full on success yet, but it's on the right road.
Yeah. See, to me, that's the entrepreneur in me, the killer in me that, like, I just picked up on what you just said. And I'm like, oh, really? Let's make sure that Bitcoin is a success because I see a lot of people trying to kill it. Right. But look, we have a one Bitcoin is worth $1.3 trillion as a market cap. Okay. If you looked at Bitcoin as a company, what is it? It has no CEO, no board of directors. Many people will look at that and go, man, that's a problem. Really, is it a problem? Well, there's no letters to send anyone to. Okay. There's no one that can go corrupt. It's just an algorithm now, right? Oh, also, I don't know of any other thing other than Bitcoin that is a pure monopoly. It's a one of a kind, finite, right? Its own algorithm. You can't just go grab it. Well, everyone can grab it. That's the beauty of it. You can look at it every day. You can audit it every 10 minutes, yet it has no regulatory monopoly exposure. Now, I find that interesting. And no human error, no crazy guy to start, touching staff or taking money or doing something crazy. Um, God, that's kind of cool. We have a technology that doesn't require people. Now, the bad news is marketing, no marketing department, no PR department, no sales department, no messaging department because it's decentralized. There isn't anyone there to formulate the message, and we're still at 1.3 trillion. We're at 1.3 trillion. We've had Mount Gox, major disaster 10 years ago. We've had Sam Bankman Fried. We've had Celsius steal money from people. Okay. Shame on the FTC and the SEC for allowing that shit to happen on their watch while they were jacking around with me over 100 grand. I mean, it's unbelievable. They're watching hundreds of millions of dollars stolen from consumers, and they're busy doing something else. I'm not sure what they're doing. This was so obvious. Um, Gosh, man, I don't know. Let's see. We now have an ETF. We have BlackRock saying they're going to tokenize everything on planet Earth. What does tokenize mean? It means remove it from analog and move it to digital. Okay, that's what that means. See, we're using a bunch of terms. I'm not sure people know what that means. Tokenized. Dude, we're digitizing everything. Planet Earth is being digitized. That's why I bought Node 40, one of the companies you talked about. Because if you think we're digitizing the world, if you think the world is moving to, look, there's going to be a day when you and I are told we cannot drive our automobiles on the highways. There will be a moment when there are more digital cars, robots, AI, and then you and I become the variable of risk, and we will be asked not to drive on that road. If that is true, then we're going to do everything digitally, and everything digitally will need to be accounted for, tracked, traced, valued forensically. And there's no tools, dude. There's no tools to do this with. You can't do a billion transactions from one player. I have one customer that did a billion transactions last year. That is not on Excel. It doesn't happen on Excel, okay? It happens with compression technology, real computer science, technology that solves very, very dense issues, highly granulated. Imagine being able to dissect every sand particle on planet Earth. Okay. Analog can't do that. What analog's good at is picking a bunch of the sand up off the beach and pushing it over into another spreadsheet and going, there's 10 billion pounds of sand. It's not good at, oh, that digital sand is worth this. That came from Stephen. That piece came from Mary. Like when I buy $1 million worth of Bitcoin, there's about 80 or 100 different sellers of that Bitcoin to me. There's not just one Bitcoin coming to me at that much money. So we have something today we've never had before. Cryptology is not new. This is not a new idea. This really helped me get very, very convicted. AI started in the 50s, I think 1952. Guess what else started in the 50s? Cryptology. They've been talking about digital banking for a long time, man. And then 2008 came along, and I think things just come at the right time. 2008 came along, and that's when Bitcoin showed up because it's pretty clear the monopoly game that you and I always grew up with. This is a good question for you to ask your audience going forward. Do you know anyone that's ever finished the game Monopoly in their home? I don't. I have never. You know what they say at the very end of the game? Hey, man, if you run out of money, just print some more. Literally write some notes and start allocating them out. That's why the game's never finished because it's a game that has.
Sounds like the fiat system.
It is the fiat system. It was built on it, right? But it never ends. And this is why people keep saying, "Hey, look, we're going to go bust. We're going to die. We're going to." No, we're not, dude. None of this debt has to be repaid. None of it. All it's going to do is get rolled. You roll it and you extend it, push it and extend and pretend. It's literally, we have a phrase on Wall Street: extend and pretend.
Gary, do you ever feel any pressure to buy as much Bitcoin as you can in a short period of time? Because there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin. I think there's something like 3,000 and something billionaires in the world. And there's about 59 million millionaires in the world. And maybe one day everyone will be rushing to buy as much Bitcoin as possible. Do you feel like in these kind of we're still quite early stages of Bitcoin, even though it's been around for about 15 years? Do you feel some pressure to accumulate as much as you can in this period of time? And I recently saw that you just sold one of your houses for $2.5 million. Was that part of the reason why you sold at this time?
That was the reason. I actually dropped the price of the house by 300 grand to move it. If a house isn't moving, it's because of price. If a piece of real estate isn't moving, it's all price, right? So I had the house up on the market. Bitcoin was trading between 40 and 66 at the time, all over the place, probably closer in the 60s. I dropped the house by 300 grand. The next week, sold it, closed it in 6 days. A neighbor down the street, I mean, damn, I had to pay a real estate agent. One of my neighbors bought it. It's a good deal for them. I immediately deployed all the funding into Bitcoin at 60, call it 62, maybe some at 66. I'm underwater right now, and I don't look too worried about it, do I?
You don't look worried at all.
Yeah, exactly. I then added another piece 2 weeks ago at the 57s. I think your question is, hey, do you ever feel rushed to buy it? I have felt rushed to buy it. My average price is 40,838 on my total package. I do not have nearly enough. I am one third of the way. Well, I still have a ways to go because I think of now accumulating Bitcoin. I don't even think about the value. I added 8% to my Bitcoin stack just the other day. And I don't even care about the money anymore. I care about, hey, how large is that stack? Can I get that stack to a level where I think it is legacy life altering money, because I define freedom very differently than most people. And that's really what I'm looking for. See, I'm looking for freedom and power, control, ability to counteract evil, these evil people that want to lie to us all the time. And I can't do that on $100 million. Okay. I need a lot of money to be able to make change. I have no intention of bringing any of this shit with me to the grave, by the way. I will give it all away. Okay. Like, not one penny's walking down the street with me when I go to my grave. Not a penny. I don't know why people want to save all this shit.
You're only going to give it away to the government, and they're going to charge you inheritance tax when you die anyway, right?
And yeah, and then my kids probably don't even want it. I was with Anthony Scaramucci the other day, and Anthony's got 714 Bitcoin, and he's the only other guy I know that knows his cost base. I have met thousands of people in Bitcoin. It is amazing how many people don't know what their cost base is, much less their other cost base for their other coins, a la Node 40. But I'm with Scaramucci one day, I think in Dallas or something. Hey man, are we going to be okay? Prices were like $30,000. And I said, Anthony, this is the way I figured, because he's got kids like me. This is the way I figured, man. If we're wrong, our kids grow up just like you and I with fucking nothing, dude. And good parents, they grow up with nothing. But if we're right, I'm afraid my kids have a monster problem. Okay. Because I'm going to give them $1 billion in Bitcoin, and they're going to have to decide what to do with that. Right. That's a big responsibility. When I said that to him, he was like, I'm going home and telling my wife, that's the best answer I've ever heard in my life. Right. So, do I ever feel rushed? I do feel rushed to buy Bitcoin, but I'll tell you something I've learned, because I haven't been here for like 12 halvings. Just kidding. 12 years. I think we're always going to have the ability. I'm no longer feeling rushed. One, I have enough that I'm like, okay, if it runs away from me, if it all of a sudden shoots to 100, I'm going to sit there and go, dude, you knew, and you didn't pull the trigger. See, I know, okay. Now I know your audience may not know, but I've spent 700 to 1,000 hours on this subject. Okay, I also spent 40 years in other businesses. And like when you feel this thing, when this thing happens, I mean, I was so convinced that during a hellacious corporate divorce and family divorce, I was continuing to buy millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin and companies inside this ecosphere. My lawyers were like, "Hey, dude, that's going to create a lot of problems." I'm like, "This is a once in a lifetime opportunity, dude. Just because I'm getting divorced is not going to stop my entrepreneurial spirit. This is what I do." Like, it would be like taking a gun away from a soldier in a war, right? Okay, we're getting a divorce, but I still have my gun and I'm still a soldier. I'm still going to hunt. And like, I've never been more convinced on this play than any other play I've ever done in my life. And I have been told I would be removed from a country once. The play was so big. These are big plays. When you get that phone call, man, okay, I'm making some headway. People are telling me they're going to remove my passport. Or when you have a lunch with Bank of America and they threaten, with their cabal to screw you because they know what you're doing. This trade here, it's terrifying Wall Street. Okay, it's terrifying any legacy player, actually. All legacy players should be worried. All analog. If you came from the 20th century, you should be worried. And you should also be really excited. Like, I'm usually the oldest guy in the room. I'm like, man, I'm excited. This is so exciting. There's so many opportunities. I could build 10 companies, man. I can't find the people. I can't find the heart, the passion. I can't find people that don't get confused about going to their house and taking care of their roof. Why are you taking care of your roof, man? Work for a living, right? Your job is not a roofer. We have 8 billion people getting ready to enter the work market, right? We have AI that's getting ready to add to that. And to me, If you look at the AI piece with this, I mean, with being with Kathy Woods, it's so amazing because she and I are just like, hey, this whole world. I mean, you basically have four planets coming together all at one time, conversion. Like, and we're seeing it at slow motion. Medicine. I'm 66, dude. If I was 56, I think I would live another 30 years, 40 years. Really. Like 56, you guys, they're going to grow cartilage for your knees, man, in your lifetime, right? They're going to do cell regeneration that's unbelievable. The eyesight's not going to be a problem anymore. The cancers, all this stuff, once we start getting honest, right? Where all this is coming from, I just think there's going to be a massive amount of development, and we're not going to use dollars to move through a computer system. See, it's too slow. This is too slow. This is awesome if you and I are hanging out together. But you're in Korea, man. Here, Stephen. Make use of this.
Thanks, I'll take that. Not easy.
Exactly. Okay. Not easy. Well, how are we going to solve that problem? Okay. Because right now, in order to be a part of the CNN club and Fox News, you pay a cable company to provide the TV, and then they pay pretty people who have bizarre lives to tell you what the news is. Okay, so you're paying for that. Well, what if you paid me for some real direct data, but you only paid $1 a month? Would you like to send one of your children to Gary Cardone's boot camp for 3 months on how to build a business or how to define what your basic skills are in life? Because I don't know anybody doing that. Okay, no school does it. Like you can't find a high school that's talking about Bitcoin or blockchain. None of the teachers know. The speed of change that is occurring on this planet, we are asking and expecting our politicians and our teachers to keep up with it. I am not a dumb guy, dude. I spend all day keeping up with this stuff. Okay. So we're asking the impossible from the analog era. We are. Okay. What we should do is we should be feeling sorry for these people and say, I'm so sorry that you read from the analog books and were lied to, but you're teaching our children now, and you're going to have to go get a higher education or be removed from the classroom. The classroom is going to not exist in 2030. 2030, classrooms will not be here, man. It'll be prisons. Okay. Any parent that sends their kid to a school in 2030, you're sending them to prison and you know it. You're outsourcing your children. You shouldn't have had them in the first place.
And I think schools as well are really focusing a lot on just getting people into normal generic jobs. They're not teaching people about money. They're not teaching people how to invest. They're not teaching people about new industries that are coming, AI, as we said, blockchain, other areas, new media that's coming out. It's all based on the old analog system.
I tell you, I think it's worse than that. I don't think they're even worried about where they're going to go to school or the money. They're where they're going to go to work. They're literally trying to get them out of the school. See, their statistic is kid graduates equals success. My children will tell you today, they're 17 and 15. They have no respect for the testing. They don't think it matters. They think it's a complete joke. And my kids are really respectful. They're not like hard ons, They're like, hey, this is bullshit, dude. They don't use that language, but this is like, wow. And they lose respect for people like us, man, because they're like, oh, all you guys are like this. All the old guys are like this, right? It's a masquerade party. That's what they think. So these people don't even have the tools to do this, man. Right? They don't have the tools. I mean, we're just moving so fast. I mean, look what Elon did to NASA in 10 years. He embarrassed them, took their pants down, dude. Okay, showed them how to use reusable rockets. I mean, this is a big deal. Okay, I have an automobile that no longer even needs my hands to be on it, and it's not an electric car. Okay. I mean, it's doing a lot. So we're just moving into this cool world. And I think my music got better. Okay. Go back to the phone. Did my music get better or did my options get better? Dude, I have so much music on this thing, it's unbelievable. I like that, dude. I barely pay anything for it. I would rather the artists get all that money, okay? Like, I don't know why Sony's getting it. And that's gonna change in this digital world. If you can provide platform, no censorship. We cannot have censorship. Censorship is more important than Bitcoin. Freedom of speech is more important than Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is a massive opportunity for anyone 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20 to invest in Bitcoin as an asset similar to being able to invest in Manhattan in the 1800s or investing in Amazon in the 1990s or Nvidia in the 2005. Okay. Nvidia, a $2 trillion company, is 25 years old. They make hardware. They're not a software company. They're a hardware company, and their multiple is ridiculous. They own 82% of the market. They are for sure a monopoly. They will be attacked by the regulators because of their monopoly position. Bitcoin's going to be much bigger than them, dude. It's only 15 years old. And so you talk about these millionaires. There's 62 million millionaires, and there's 400,000 ultra wealthy families. Just make some allocation of Bitcoin to them. Do you know any rich people that don't own a Rolex? Nope. They all own Rolexes, right? Most of them. Well, the Rolex market's going down. All the luxury markets are going down. I think the 62 million millionaires around the world and the 400,000 ultra wealthy, they are maxed out, dude. They have bought every asset class they can. Villas, homes, pensions, bonds, equities. They don't have any Bitcoin. I know guys with $500,000 watches on their arms, man. $1 million watches. These people, once you tell them there's something out there they can't just go buy and control, they're gonna buy it. I mean, I know 10 people that bought $62 million airplanes. That's 1,000 Bitcoin. None of those people are here yet, folks. None of those people. Not really. Okay. But when you do the math, you go, hey, 62 million millionaires deploy $2,500 into Bitcoin. All this thing, I can't afford Bitcoin. You can just buy $2,500. Okay. You don't have to buy $70,000 worth of it. That's 20 million Bitcoin. Okay. And the 400,000 people that are ultra wealthy, let's assume they deploy 250 grand or just 25 grand. Run the math, man. Okay. It's 400,000 times 25,000, right? Divided by whatever the price is. And it's $63,000 today. So there's another 10 or 11, 12, 15 million Bitcoin. No one's in this. Okay. It's guys like you and I that are really kind of early.
Yeah, it's been going for 15 years, but we've still got to remember that is extremely short period of time in the life cycle of an asset like this.
It took us 25 years to restructure the energy platforms. It took Visa and MasterCard 52 years to get full optional credit cards. So 15 years is like nothing, man.
Gary, I wanted to ask you as well about the messaging in terms of educating people. So obviously there's the two different types of buyers, right? So you've got the retail crowd, you've got people like you and I and other people who want to buy Bitcoin personally and maybe trying to convince their families or trying to convince friends, etc., to buy Bitcoin. And then you've got the institutions, right? You've got the people that might be investing in these ETFs. And there's a different messaging behind that because I think in Bitcoin, we're very used to people as early adopters kind of geeking out about all of the properties of Bitcoin and saying in our own special way of being able to persuade people. But I think that the messaging should be different to different people. What's your views on the messaging to the two different parties?
Well, bit of a pet peeve of mine because I think the messaging has been about as horrific as one could imagine. I actually do not think you could have rolled out a worse marketing and PR messaging. I think you could not have actually done it consciously any worse. The problem with Bitcoin is that you do not have a centralized source. So remember when the government or when a company like mine, I build a company, it turns into a big company, I'm centralized. I have a PR department. I have a marketing message. I bring all my staff in to weekly trainings and monthly trainings, and hey, this is our message. Bitcoin has none of that. So the white paper on Bitcoin by Satoshi, the first few words is it is a peer-to-peer monetary system. I can't remember, but it definitely says peer to peer. And I think some of the purists, if not some of the loudest purists, immediately assumed and then articulated, which I'm not even convinced is correct, but they articulated that Bitcoin was peer to peer and that's the only purpose. And therefore, Satoshi wrote it and therefore it needs to happen tomorrow. Satoshi said nothing about peer to peer being pervasive and systemic through the entire food chain in year 1, 2, or 15. And if he had done that, he would have been an idiot, okay? He would have been absolutely incorrect. And he might have been one of these technologists, like most technologists I have met, who had a vision, good vision, awesome vision. He proclaims his vision, we're going to be peer to peer. But he left out, oh, and that will take some time because first we have to get institutional adoption, just like every other freaking industry's ever had to get in the history of serving 8 billion people. Okay. This is incorrect, guys. You read the white paper, but you layered on top of the white paper your understanding of what that meant. And maybe one day in 30 years we're peer to peer and it's pervasive and it's the currency. But right now it is not a currency of any type except for the very, very largest players in the world and people like me who look at this and go, hey, this is institutional grade money right now. This is not retail money. Do not use Bitcoin to buy potato chips. It pisses me off so much when I hear these people, hey, I bought some potato chips today. I'm like, dude, like, why would you do that? Okay. Well, I'm helping the system. I'm greasing the rails of commerce. That is ridiculous to think that a bag of potato chips is going to help. What you need is you need guys like me starting to use this in their treasury, in transacting to buy companies and bypassing the system. I had 5 bank accounts with Bitcoin sitting in them all over the world and bought Node 40 on a Saturday afternoon. Okay. Imagine having a cousin in the Ukraine and you're really rich, okay? And you want to help them because, like, they're getting ready to be trapped, okay? Russia's going to come in and grab them, or Poland, or whoever's going to do the naughty. And you were able to send them $500,000 coin in 10 minutes so they could get the fuck out of town. You cannot do that with anything else, guys. You can't give them your credit card, okay? The Visa will not, they'll decline the transaction. They're a State Department player. So Bitcoin offers, like, what did Michael Saylor do? I love the Michael Saylor example. Okay. And my twist on this is very, very different than most people. One, I think he's a brilliant guy. So don't take what I'm getting ready to say as wrong. But Mike and me, he was he was smart enough to realize, hey, this is getting too hard. I can't compete with Microsoft and Google anymore. Like, it's getting impossible and compete with inflation. Because see, Saylor had to borrow, regular bank money, while Amazon and Netflix and Google, dude, they're being given 0% money. Now, Saylor ended up figuring it out, but for me, Saylor was his back was against the wall, a little bit like the guy in Turkey. He's looking to his left and there's communists. He's looking to his right and there's socialists. He's looking up front and damn America. I'm not sure what they are, but they're one of communists or socialism or fact, but they're definitely not free capitalism anymore. We've changed. We're nothing about us is about capitalism. Nothing, dude. It's about weapons and control. I think people who have their backs up against the wall, and I was one of them, start looking for options. And Saylor looked at this option and said, this is the best option for me to deploy into my company. It's a Hail Mary, but dude, it's a good Hail Mary. Okay. And I think that is what we are going to see. The people who have come in this space were either bored with the old world or really tired of it. And they saw this. I could have retired, man. I could be fishing every morning. I find this to be really exciting. This is the most exciting career I've ever had in my life. Seriously, I've done some cool shit, dude. This is so exciting. I meet so many great people. So to your audience, like when you're saying no, because you went and talked to your wife about Bitcoin, first off, if you're a man and you're talking to your wife about Bitcoin and she doesn't know anything about finance, dude, shame on you, dude. Like, what are you doing? You're putting her in an impossible position. Okay, she doesn't know anything about Bitcoin. Like I'm not asking her how to make dinner. Okay, this is my job. My job is to figure out not to ask my wife, the dumbest person in the room on finance, what I should do with my money. I'm not saying all women are like that. I'm just saying if she doesn't know anything about finance, I would never let you make that decision. Like I have more experience than you do. I have more conviction than you do. I know what I'm going to do if I'm wrong, right? Which is, hey, I'll just have to work another 10 years. Right? So, and I'm not scared of that. I am not scared of that at all. So all I think is that the problem for your audience is you have very few people to ask about this product. No one's been educated. The people that are advising you right now do not want this to work. Okay. I've spent 1,000 hours in this subject matter. You got to like get in. There's no like shortcut to Bitcoin. I wouldn't say it's a complicated field. What's complicated is unwinding everything you think you know about finance. And if you haven't had that experience with Bitcoin yet, you haven't studied it enough. That's the to me, that is the big issue is we have to understand we have been lied to for 100 years now. Things are not as they appear to be. And that's the biggest challenge for Bitcoin, in my opinion, that people need to get over.
And I'm yet to find anybody that's done 1,000 hours studying Bitcoin and hasn't ended up buying Bitcoin after those 1,000 hours of studies.
I've said this for a year publicly. I don't know anyone that spent 25 hours. In fact, Stephen and I will offer you, and I'll make the offering, one Bitcoin. He and I will give you the 25-hour schedule of what you have to study. If you do the 25 hours and you decide not to invest in Bitcoin, I will give you one Bitcoin to do whatever you want with it, at whatever the price is at that moment. Not one human being spend 25 hours will walk away from this. Not one, dude.
No, it just all makes sense when you do the real work behind it.
I mean, a lot of people think I've gotten this really quick. They joke about me on social media, like, dude, this guy got orange pill faster than anybody in the world. That's not really true. But my conviction level, I think, has almost frightened people. Like they're like, whoa, this cat. But for me, man, if it's right, it's right. Like I don't get the, oh, it's really a brilliant opportunity. Ooh, why do you still have that stuff over there in that pension? And why do you have that stuff in your 401k, dude? Like you own Raytheon? That's a war machine. My sister owned Philip Morris, 20 years, dude, making a 4% yield. Stocks, nothing. Okay. She went and bought Bitcoin. She's added 40% to her freaking IRA. And hey, that's a trend I'm seeing. I don't know if you've noticed this. I love looking for anomalies. How many people go, oh, wow, Bitcoin's really, 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 really volatile. It's really dangerous. And then they go deploy it into their IRA. Their first move is their IRA. So it's almost like they're schizophrenic. They're like, it's volatile, but it makes 45% a year. Hey, I don't want to pay taxes. So I'm going to stick this really violent product into my IRA. Like, dude, do you think it's going to perform or do you think it's going to fall out of bed? Because you wouldn't deploy the most violent product into, and that's the other thing for your audience. If you hear anyone talk about the volatility of Bitcoin without screaming to you in big bold letters, the most and best performing asset in the last 12 years ever in the history of mankind, you have to say both of those things. Like, hey, Gary, this redhead that I'm going to introduce you to, she's a little freaky, okay? But dude, she's the most awesome woman on the whole world. Well, they leave out that part. Okay, I got it, dude. 2 days a week, she freaks out. She's a little volatile, but she's still the most awesome human being on the planet. Or a supercar. Hey, it's got some maintenance issues. You know, you got to pay extra for the maintenance. Yeah, but it's a supercar. So as long as I know what the attributes of all these things are, volatility and monster returns. Who do you know is looking at their apartment portfolio today going, oh, wow, man, I'm 30% underwater right now. I should sell all these assets. No one's looking at their apartments because they don't have a chart. People don't even look at their pension plans.
And actually, I think the reason why people don't realize that real estate is volatile is because there's no open market for it. It's not liquid, right? So there could be a lot of volatility. You don't know because you're not planning to sell it every other day.
Correct. There is no liquidity. And like my brother's apartment, you go into a deal with him, it's 10 years, dude. It's a minimum of 10 years. So then for you real estate guys who are like thinking I'm crazy, you look at that and you go, hey, look, you got a 10-year real estate play. Bitcoin offers a very different duration opportunity. Not only is the return going to be much better, okay, but I think it'll be much better, even post depreciation, post amortization. Real estate has some real cool attributes to it, but it's only because the banking system allows that. Okay, depreciation, amortization, 1031 exchanges, being able to roll real estate. Imagine if you could roll Bitcoin, bro. They would never sell Bitcoin, right? So, what do we know about Bitcoin? You can't mortgage it yet. That's the operative word, yet. You can't depreciate it and amortize it, and you can't roll it. You can't 1031 it. Now, what is good about it? You can move it anywhere in the world. I can take it to Korea in 10 seconds, right? And nobody even has to know it. I can liquidate my position within seconds anonymously. Anonymously meaning I don't have to worry about the other party. I'm not anonymous. It's going to be clear that I did a transaction. I have tax implications that I have to consider. Okay, this is why I don't like the whole token market. I like Bitcoin. I don't need to buy any of this other shit. And there's 21 million units. Okay. If real estate's core maxim is location, 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 you will get Bitcoin. Okay. If you don't understand what location, location, location mean, location, location, location really is finite. There are only so many homes that can fit in one neighborhood. That's what that really means. Okay. And that one neighborhood, Manhattan, is superior to some other neighborhood, New Jersey, let's say. Dude, this is Bitcoin. 21 million units, digital real estate that can move all over the world, that has no energy impact, doesn't require roof maintenance, plumbing, or anything of the like. And it has the greatest return in the last 15 years on a product that has been grossly mismarketed, grossly PR'd. In fact, I would say miseducated. Like it's cost me $1 billion, man. These people sold this to me so badly, man. It was so bad, the messaging. I couldn't get over. I'm like, I'm out. Because I think there's a big I'm talking about deploying millions and millions and millions of dollars into Bitcoin. And this is this self-custody thing also. Don't let anybody talk you into controlling how you take care of your Bitcoin. Dude, buy it from Kmart if you want. Okay? Just buy some Bitcoin. Buy some Bitcoin, then go study it. Okay? Buy $10 worth, buy $10 million worth, buy $1,000 worth, buy enough to get your attention to go read the white paper. Because when you own this product, you're going to read the white paper differently. Okay. I do not play poker for a penny because you know what happens? I'm calling, I'm calling, I'm calling. 8 people call the hand. Everybody wants to play every hand when it's too cheap. So invest enough money into Bitcoin where you go, okay, I'm going to really study this product. And if it goes bad, gosh, I lost 25, 30, 40, $50,000. You'll realize very quickly that you'll want to add to this, especially if you have other assets. This is another message from the Bitcoin community I think is wrong. Hey, we're going to eat from all the other asset classes. I don't think you have to. What if all the other asset classes, real estate in particular, that gives distributions, private equity that gives very lumpy distributions, what if all that just flows into Bitcoin? Just the distributions. You don't need to sell the bonds. I think the bond market's going to puke, but you don't need the other 12 asset classes to fail for Bitcoin to do extremely well. For instance, I take all my real estate distributions and move them right into Bitcoin. I am what I think is the most efficient Bitcoin miner on the planet. Make fiat from analog assets, immediately turn it into Bitcoin.
which is what Michael Saylor's doing in a different way too. That's the playbook, right?
Totally, totally. Okay. That's the corporate playbook. Like, I don't have that playbook because he's got a public entity that he can issue stock on. I mean, he's really showing people how to do this correctly. You do not need to be a Michael Saylor to do what he's doing. You can be a family. And if you think just to get into game theory, and I'm going to suggest that up to this point, this conversation, but hey, it's your option to study it. It is your option. It's your choice. But there are 400,000 families that have a lot of money. Okay. And if they all just deploy $25,000, in fact, it's probably worth doing the math. Okay. Because this is a game theory now. When you have a finite solution, a finite product, commodity, it changes everything because you guys aren't used to finite. You're used to, oh, well, they can make some more cars. I mean, Range Rover controls their price because they don't make oversupply, right? But they could. If the price goes to 400 grand, watch what happens to those cars, right? So this is different. When everyone catches on, oh shit, you can only buy so much of this stuff. Think, I don't know how many $500,000 watches you have, but I don't have any. Okay. But dude, there are a lot of people with $500,000 watches. That's $10 billion that would be deployed into Bitcoin at $25,000. Okay. That is $30 million of ultra wealth liquid net worth. That's how this 406,000 people, they deploy 25,000 only, 10 billion. They deploy 250, which is what I think they'll do. It's $1 trillion, right? Let's divide that by 63,000 bucks, and we need 600,000 Bitcoin just for the 2,500, dude. You need a million, 16 million if they do 250. And I've done many factors of that. Okay. So, like, and I'm not even one of these cats. That's the funny part, dude. I'm not one of these guys. Sheik Miki, though, okay? He owns 3 BBJs, 2 super jets, 6 villas, oil fields all over Saudi Arabia. Oh, by the way, he's mining Bitcoin because his cost base is 0. These miners, like, you guys stay away from the miners, okay? The miners in America, I don't see this happening very well. I own some miners. I hate them. I should have just stuck with Bitcoin. I got a little greedy, okay? And this happens. But if you get into the game theory and you start to really think about who could do what and when, the entry point for Bitcoin today is better than it's ever been. And this is be the most difficult part for your audience to hear is, look, all the testing has already occurred now. We've gone through the most difficult period and we're still at 1.3 trillion. This is real early. We have real corporate adoption at this level, real Wall Street adoption. And we have people like me now coming in saying, hey, look, this is real. Whether it's through the ETF, whether it's through your own wallet, whether it's through Coinbase, I don't really care. Okay. To me, get in, take a bite of the apple, and then study the apple, figure out where it fits in your family, and then look at what other assets you have, what other investments or savings. I don't think saving is a good thing. Okay? I think saving is a really bad thing to do. Investing is really smart. You start looking around. I found $100,000 sitting in an IRA. Like, I just forgot it, man. 100 grand just sitting there from my old, sitting in Kmart stock or some dumb stock, right? It was easy. Write a letter, move it over to iTrust, and now it's in Bitcoin. So it's, to me, it's an exciting time to be alive, and I think people have a option here to opt out, to get a choice to this new world. And I would actually say that if you've listened to this, you have no right to complain in 5 years if you're left behind. I don't mean to be rude about it, but dude, you got to wake up right now. Right now, you got to wake up.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Gary. And I think if you're investing now, you've still got a real chance of front running all of those high wealth individuals, high net worth individuals, the corporations. This is probably the only asset class where you've actually ever had a chance to front run some of those high net worth individuals. So it's a great opportunity. And as you said, it's de-risked as time has gone on because there's less people trying to fight it. There's still people trying to fight it, but less than the early days.
Yeah. I personally think this next level investor will make more money and retain it than the other people did. But there's a lot of people that had a chance to make a lot of money and they blew it. Look at Roger Ver. Okay. Roger Ver now has treasury all over him, got arrested. If he would have understood this was worth $100,000 to $300,000 a coin, he'd have paid his taxes properly. You see, that's the problem. If you had really thought this through, all of them, CZ, the guy at Celsius, every one of them, you're like, oh man, you guys were sitting on the cat daddy and you blew it. You cheated, you robbed, you stole. I'm going to make a lot of money from this space because it's getting cleaned up, man. Right? It's on the world stage now. It has been, it's the only 15-year-old I know that's been invited to every private country club in the world, dude. Only 15-year-old, every country club on the planet. It's been invited to, right? That's pretty impactful to me.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. For anybody that wants to find out a little bit more about you, can you please provide how people contact you?
Yeah, contact Twitter at Gary Cardone YouTube, and it's CardoneDigitalVentures.com.
Perfect. Thank you very much.